Hey, welcome everyone to Horror Movie Massacre, presented by the Horror Syndicate. Tonight, we are talking about two movies. So, two movies for the price of one, although you're not paying a damn thing. So, Bride of Chucky and Seed of Chucky, the fourth and fifth installments to the Child's Play franchise, or would you call it just a Chucky franchise? Probably. And in my opinion, the worst two. This is the lowest point, and there's a couple of reasons why I say that, and it's not just because of the movies. We got 8 years between or well, 7 years between Child's Play 3 and Bride of Chucky, and then we got 6 years between Bride and Seed, and then a long hiatus after Seed. We're talking 9 years with Colt, which I don't think even got a theatrical cut. I mean, Curse. So we're going to talk about these movies tonight. I want to remind anybody who watches, please hit the like button, of course, on Facebook. If you're new to Facebook, or if you're new to the show, check us out on Facebook. We go live every Wednesday and every Sunday. And then please hit the subscribe button if you're new on YouTube. If you want, I mean, you can, if you have a Gmail, go to YouTube, hit the subscribe button. Helps us out. And of course, there will be a spoiler warning. These movies are 20 and 26 years old. And 26 years old, I graduated high school the year that Bride of Chucky came out. I am old as fuck. And somebody else who's old as fuck is Seth T. Miller. Seth, how's it going?
It is going.
Is it? Oh, I like your picture. You're my white knight.
Yeah.
So you have somewhat of a different opinion of me when it comes to these two. Sean wrote an entire book for this one, so we'll just throw those up on the screen while we talk. Tell me kind of like I've seen your scores. Tell me what you think of these movies in short, and we'll get into what really works and what doesn't work, and you know how we do the show. And we'll start with Bride of Chucky, of course.
Yeah. Well, Bride, I think is it's a fun movie. And both of these are I think they're pretty much towards the bottom of my list, but I do have fun with Bride. I think there's some good qualities to it. I think it's a fun, fast-paced movie, and I don't hate it. Seed, on the other hand, it's just a fucking travesty. You look at Child's Play 1 through 3, and then you think about Seed, and you're like, what the hell happened to this franchise? So those are my brief thoughts. Bride is fun to me. Seed is absolutely the worst film in this franchise.
I don't think that's even. Well, I know for sure that's not even conjecture or whatever because I've seen the scores of our followers. It's true. This is the Seed's the worst one, and it could have been the death nail for the franchise if not for 9 years of waiting until Curse of Chucky came out, which is really good. Seed is one of the worst movies I've ever seen. I wouldn't go that far, but it's pretty bad. It's actually there's a couple like John Waters' scene is pretty good, but for the most part, it's almost unwatchable for me. And I think that's I don't know if unwatchable is the right word for everybody. Uh, I, Sorry, Sean, you got so much on here that I'm just going throwing them up on the screen. Um, Glenda, what the fuck is I hear people saying Don Mancini was trying to say something about transgender people? Glenda. I don't know, man. That's not even my least favorite thing about the movie. There's so much more that's bad. Yep. So for me, 1 out of 5. There we go. Let's give it a 0 out of 5 if I could. Um, who's your dude? John Waters? Oh, I see the picture. Yeah, I'm kind of in the same camp. Like, well, I was really excited about Bride of Chucky because we've discussed the first three movies, and I loved pretty much all three of them.
Yeah.
And I was just like, what the fuck? Would they when I watched that movie? I didn't see it in the theater. I rented it shortly after it came out. and I noticed. It's okay. But I rented it and I was like, yeah, let's check this out. And I was like, there's bad acting in it. John Ritter's awful in this movie. Um, so are the two humans in this. You know, Alexis Arquette's stuff is it's so stupid, and I can see how people would think it's fun. It wasn't for me. I hated the whole fucking ride. The only thing that I liked was she says "fuck Martha Stewart" or when he whoever says it. I don't even remember at this point. And it's I just don't like it. It's a bad movie overall. It's I think it's I honestly think it's a piece of shit movie. It's not a good movie. We have doll sex in it. Yeah, I just don't like it. I really have nothing nice to say about Bride or Seed of Chucky. And then Seed of Chucky, we got a bootleg of it, and I just couldn't believe what I was watching. It was definitely one of the worst horror films from a horror franchise with at least 5 movies. How about that?
Yeah.
I think like if you look at a movie like Halloween Resurrection, a movie that's panned by almost everyone in the horror community. Almost there are some Halloween Resurrection fans for sure, and I'm sure there are plenty of Seed of Chucky fans. I think Seed of Chucky's worse than Resurrection. What do you think? That was the number one question I wanted to ask you tonight.
Oh yeah, totally. Because Halloween Resurrection, despite all its flaws, it still tries to maintain itself as a Halloween movie. It's even though it fails in a lot of aspects of it, it's still a horror movie. Whereas Seed of Chucky is just it's a complete nosedive. Um, like it's just goofy for the sake of being goofy. It's like a shadow of his former self.
Hmm. Yeah, and I honestly thought that was it. I was like, what? That's the end of the Chucky franchise, you know? And in the early 2000s, anyway, we were seeing kind of a shift in tone and horror. And then the early 2010s, we started seeing some of this stuff coming back, like Scream 4, Hellraiser. Even though it was a bad Hellraiser, came back, and then we got another Hellraiser and another Hellraiser.
Well,
You know what?
yeah. Well, I mean, the thing with Bride and Seed is that they were, I guess, sort of products of their time. Like Bride was, 2 years after Scream. It was
Hmm.
definitely it had that Scream sort of influence on it, especially as far as being a little bit more meta, being a little bit more polished looking, um, going a little bit more towards the comedy side. Um, yeah, and then there's a complete course correction with Curse, which I can't wait to talk about next week. But
Yeah, Curse. I was that like I actually we'll get into it next week, of course. But Curse, I thought was a reboot, and I was like, "Oh, this is a welcome reboot," and it wasn't. But it still rocks. I think. Halloween Resurrection is a bad movie, but not overly offensive to where Seed makes me want to like on a plane and grab a barf bag. Oh yeah, yeah, I got you, man. Yeah, I agree. So so we'll talk about Bride, and there are some okay things in Bride overall. Like I said, there's when there. I think the high point of the movie for me is that I like that the story follows these two lovers who are on the run basically and get in trouble, you know, and but it's all Chucky and Tiffany's fault. I like that. I think that's fun, right?
yeah,
But and I think most of the fun happens after they leave the hotel when they're in the camper or whatever you want to call it.
hmm
I think that's the most fun in the movie, and the ending is okay. I feel like the ending could have set up more, but we ended up getting seated Chucky. But That's my take. I don't have much to say about it, because there's not much I have to say that's nice about it. Because I think it's some of the worst acting in the franchise in this movie, which, except for when you get to Seed, because Jennifer Tilly is not a good actress. I think, now you can say I'm wrong if you want, but I just don't understand why she was hired. Maybe you have some insight to that, because I have no clue why they went with her.
I have no insight into that, but I thought she was fine in Bride. I thought she was, I think mainly they wanted to have someone with a distinct voice. I think that's probably
That
the
could,
main
yeah, that
reason
makes
why she
sense.
was, the whole idea of transferring her into a doll, and they needed to have that voice, and I think she did fairly well in Bride, in my personal opinion. Uh, I kind of liked her character. Like, that character has gone so over the top since.
Hmm.
Um, so, like, looking at the way she is now, like, say in the way she was in Seed, or the way that she is in the TV show, but then when you go back and you look at Bride, and I think it's a much better written character. I mean, not great, of course, but um, there's a little bit more of a serious side to her. Like, she's really devoted to Charles Lee Ray,
Hmm.
and um, yeah, and then there's just some really fun stuff. For me, because okay, look, I saw Bride and Seed both in the theater. Um,
You did?
yes, I did, and
Poor
Bride,
bastard.
yeah. Well, I mean, again, though, I don't hate Bride like you do. Like,
Right.
I had fun with it. I had an embarrassing moment before the movie started. I was actually sitting in the theater, and there was like these two chicks pretty much like across the row from me, and I had Reese's Pieces, and I was trying to open them, but my hands were all like um, a little greasy from the butter from the popcorn, and I finally open it, and they go flying everywhere, and then the girls start laughing at me. So that was kind of fun.
Literal Butterfingers.
Yes, literally.
Literal. Yes.
Yep. But yeah, and I like I like the idea, because I think we kind of mentioned this like last week, where um, Don Mancini, um, to his credit, each film in this franchise is distinct from the other ones. He doesn't really repeat himself as far as settings go, at least. And I
Yeah.
like the idea of this one being a road movie. Now,
Yeah.
I think the whole amulet thing was bullshit, right? Because we know Charles Lee Ray did not have an amulet around his neck when he was shot by Detective Norris. That was bullshit, and that was just a way of them being like, "Oh, well, fuck Andy Berkeley, we don't need him anymore," you know. And so I thought that bit was kind of dumb, but it was I guess useful for the plot of the movie, which is it being a road movie where Chucky and Tiffany are hitching a ride across country, and along the way they're killing people, and then you have these two kids who I didn't think were bad either. Like, I guess I don't share your opinion on the acting as much, but like,
It's mostly the dude.
yeah, I could see that. Where
What's his name? He's a shitty actor, man.
I don't think I've
Um,
seen him in anything else, but
that, right. I rest my case.
yeah. But anyway, and I also like the idea too of they start believing that the other one is the person killing people. I kind of like
Mhm. Yeah.
that sort of suspicion and mistrust, while it's all just really one big misunderstanding. Obviously, because they're not privy to the knowledge that the dolls are alive. But yeah, and I think there's some fun dialogue in here too. My favorite line, one that I quote to Amber all the time, and she hates it, is "Hey, Tiff, the dishes aren't going to wash themselves, you know." uh, I just think that's kind of funny.
Woo! What did she think about that? Does she throw dishes at you?
She wants to, yeah.
Yeah, I bet.
She loves woman jokes. I'm sounding really terrible right now. But yeah, I think there's some good dialogue in it. Um I don't necessarily care for the doll sex thing and the ending with the birth.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but another thing I do like about it too is, um, so at the time this came out, right? I didn't know much about director Ronnie Yu, and of course I didn't have the stain of Freddy vs. Jason, right? But looking at this movie individually, I think it's well shot. I think there's a lot of really good shots in it, and I really love at the end too, in the graveyard, the exchange
Yeah.
of of Tiffany and the other chick,
Mm-hmm.
and again, and even in that scene, it shows sort of the more serious side to Tiffany, where she sort of empathize, empathize. I can't even speak.
Jesus, are
She
you
shows
okay?
empathy. She shows empathy.
Yeah.
Uh, so like there is a serious side to the character, and again, this character was just been written over the top ever since. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I mean, there's a lot of things I do like about it. I primarily like the it being a road movie, and I like some of the stuff that happens. I think some of the lines are good. I think the problem with these two films, especially, is the fact that they are so focused on Chucky, and there's not enough, um, there's not really enough emphasis on the two main characters. They're just kind of there, if that makes any sense,
Mm-hmm.
And so it almost doesn't feel like there's an actual protagonist, even though there is. They're just not treated in the way that Andy Barkley is, because in Child's Play 1 through 3, right, Chucky was the villain. He was the
Yeah.
villain of that. You weren't supposed to be rooting for him. Um, but with Bride and Seed, it's all about Chucky and Tiffany, and it's their show, and it's that dynamic that they're almost the protagonists of it, and the
They are.
the yeah, and the two kids and Bride are just there for the
They're
sake
for
of
they're
the plot.
no, they're there to give them a ride. That's it. And that's why I said one of the things I like is that they're on the run, and that everything makes it seem like
Mhm.
they're doing it, even though it's Chucky and Tiffany. But yeah, you're right. There is no this is there's no villain to this movie. It's just a road movie with Chucky and Tiffany, and then the other two whose characters' names I can never remember, because
Jesse
they're
and Jade.
they're what is it?
Jesse and Jade.
Jade. What a '90s name.
I like it. It's a
Um,
good name.
eh, it's no, it's just like seriously, that's a very '90s name though, right?
Yeah.
It's not bad. Do you think the Meg is better than what? See to Chucky? Yes. It's I don't think that's a good movie either though. Psycho is brilliant. Psycho 2 is brilliant, if that's what you're asking. Yeah, Jesse is garbage. David to John Ritter. I don't. I John Ritter. He really hammed it up in this one. I like the kids. Three's Company guy was a complete dildo and bride, but he did his job. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, I guess I don't know if he's a dildo or not. I like John Ritter overall as an actor. Actually, he was great in the one episode of Buffy the Vampire Slayer he was in, and he's in a few other things. The Ronnie Yu thing is something I wanted to talk about because when like this movie is not badly directed, like you said, I agree with that 100%. Um, and I don't think Ronnie Yu's a bad director. And of course, again, nobody had the disdain for him until after really Freddy vs. Jason. But when I found out he was directing, then I was like, oh, the director of Bride of Chucky. Like I never thought of it as a good directed or bad directed movie either way. But when I found out it was him, I'm like, oh, come on. That movie was a crap fest. Now he's going to make Freddy vs. Jason a crap fest. And he did. So,
Well, I mean, I was like when I found out he was directing Freddy vs. Jason, I was actually for it because I think on a visual level, like his films have looked great. I mean, you know, I do like Bride of Chucky, Bride of Chucky, um, but and I understand you don't, but like I
Mhm.
think even if you don't like the movie, you could at least see where he has a good visual style.
No,
And
I
I think
do. I
that
think he's a good director overall. It's just
yeah, and that's what I was kind of looking forward to with his Freddy vs. Jason. However, is that's a whole nother story. That film.
well, no. My point is, seeing Bride of Chucky and not liking it, and because I've never been a guy that pays attention to how a director crafts the movie, because
Mhm.
not until I started the Horror Syndicate, really, I didn't give a shit about that. I just knew that this is the guy who made this movie, and crap, he's taken a Freddy versus Jason movie that I've been waiting my whole life to, and he sucked at the last horror movie he did. So that was my train of thought going into Freddy versus Jason.
Yeah,
On that,
yeah.
no, but like yeah, I've seen some of his other movies since then, like some of the one, what is the one, the something with the white hair, I can't remember what it's called. But I actually saw that, and he's a good director. It's just I don't know what happened on Freddy versus Jason. Um, because that movie just gets worse every time I watch it. I've decided this year I'm not going to watch it. So anyway,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, Bride of Chucky, there are things about it that, like I said, that are okay, but overall, it's just not a good one for me. Not the worst, obviously,
Right.
uh, but it's like I think people overrate. I think it's overrated. I'll say that. I'll just say that. I think it's overrated.
It does get a lot of love. It
Yeah,
certainly
it's
does.
way too much, which is something I wanted to bring up. I think this is way overrated because according to our followers, this is the third best Chucky film. 85%. You got to be fucking kidding me. When I saw that score tonight, I'm like, holy shit. Are you serious? 85% for this fucking piece of shit? Because I think I don't like it. So I was a little disappointed with our followers. I think it's overrated. I think it's overrated. Plain and simple. I don't think it's worthy of that score at all. That's really high for a horror movie in our ratings. That's going to be in the top 100, guys. Yeah, that's not right to me. A movie like this should not be in the top 100. Garbage movie in the top 100. This breaks the scoring system because it's just like when people go, "Oh, Army of Darkness, great, it's 5 stars." No, it's not. Yeah, this movie's not 5 stars. I got the numbers right here. Out of 818 votes, 452 of them were 5 stars. Really? I gave it a 2 star. I was one of the 39 people who gave it 2 stars. Just saying. I think that's bullshit. I think honestly, all the Child's Play movies are, for the most part, good, but 85% is tough for any of them, in my opinion. Like, I don't think Child's Play one is an 85%. I think it's an 86%. But I mean that's their own opinion, and that's fine. But when they see the list, they're like, "Oh, Bride of Chucky's number 62." That's your fault, guys, not mine. So
Well, I mean, a lot of people do love it, and a lot of people grew up with it.
I don't think anybody has any idea what the fuck they're doing when they could do those 5 star things sometimes.
Oh no,
Honestly,
I mean, well, it's all about feelings. I think
yeah,
more
I
so
put
than
that
objective.
5 star means perfection. So 452 people think this movie's perfect. Just deal with that for a minute. I live and die by those star, like whenever I do the ratings. So I rate the ones I like, or though I've seen, and there's no way this is a perfect movie, and I don't think anybody pays attention. If I put up the image, which is mostly what people look at, for instance, if I put up the image for a movie and they love it, I can just write fart and they'll still do the same thing.
Mhm.
So it doesn't even matter. I give up. No, I don't. Um, but yeah, let's do our. Do you have more you want to say about it? What don't you like about it other than the amulet thing? And can you expand on that at all, or because I know that's one of your big hangups.
Well, yeah. Well, they're introducing a new element, and you know they they have a photo now of Charles Lee Ray's corpse, and he's
Mm.
got the amulet around his neck. But you watch the original, and it's not there. And not to mention, if that was all he needed, then why didn't he just do that to begin with? Like, so it's kind of like it's a retcon that doesn't really make sense as far as the series goes. It was just for the sake of, I guess, moving on from Andy
Hmm.
and to move the plot along as far as this being a road movie. Um, so yeah, the amulet is the big hang up, and then also, again, as much as I like this movie and as much as I've been defending it, um, you know, it's I just don't care so much for the the post Scream influence that's on it and the way it kind of changed the style. I feel like um, um, I wish it was a little bit more serious as a horror movie,
Hmm.
because
It's barely a
you,
horror movie, man. You know.
you take this concept, of it being a road movie and these two people who are not only being accused of all these murders, but they're starting to kind of accuse each other. They're starting to look at each other
Yeah.
differently. Like in a like you could take all that in a more serious movie, and it could have been awesome. It could have been a really great idea, and it could have.
Add more paranoia to it. That would have been great. You know.
Yeah, it would have been
Yeah.
like if that was the focus, right? Instead of
Mm.
Chucky having one-liners, if the focus was on Chucky and Tiffany killing, and they had more of an emphasis on these characters not trusting each other and being afraid of each other because they believe they're basically pointing the finger. Like, there could have been so much greatness with this as a horror movie, but because it was so focused on Chucky and there was a lot more one-liners and it was all about being self-referential, it just kind of drags it down a little bit.
It does, and I'm gonna make a post to compare this with other movies that are around 85%. I'm just saying because it really bugs me. Um, yeah, I agree with you. Clearly, there's a lot of issues with this movie, but a little bit of emphasis on the paranoia and less on the crack and joke. I think that's my biggest problem. It did not feel like a horror movie at all. It
Yeah,
didn't. I mean, you got some gory kills in there, but otherwise, it was kind of a comedy more than anything. And I get the horror comedy. There's that, but like I think they leaned way too heavily in the comedy for these two movies,
yeah,
and I think it's the downfall.
yeah,
Comedy and horror can be good. I mean, you look at movies like Shaun of the Dead, which is more comedy than horror, but there's a great balance between the two. Even though I'm not a huge fan, the only reason it's a good movie overall, it's just I'm not a huge fan of Shaun of the Dead because of oversaturation for me. That's it. It's a good movie. I loved it when I saw it the first time, in the first few times, whatever. But Return of the Living Dead is another example of great balance between comedy and horror. And there's a lot of other movies that are like that, and this just didn't do it. And I wonder sometimes if it was studio or Ronnie Yu that did this. I barely speak English, and just like Seth can barely speak English tonight. uh, Sorry, Seth,
yeah,
but I don't know. I don't know. And this is another one of those movies that every time I watch it, it gets worse. So, like, for me, it's like I watched Child's Play 3 and I'm like, man, I love this movie. I really do like this movie. I know it's not great, and I don't think that it's bland like Sean said, but I like it. I enjoy it. This one, am like, God, this movie just keeps getting worse. This one is also aged poorly. So is Seed. They both have aged really poorly. Luckily,
yeah.
Curse and Cult fixed that. Mostly Curse. Curse does a lot of heavy lifting in this franchise, in my opinion. Um,
Oh yeah.
But there was one comment Sean said. Where was it? Oh no, it wasn't Sean. Steven, the actor who played Ken Kersinger. Yes, he is the worst actor to play Jason, in my opinion, as well, from Freddy vs. Jason.
I don't
But that
see.
is he also.
I
Go
don't
ahead.
blame the actor. I don't blame Ken Kersinger for that.
But he gets the blame though because he's the actor. You know what I'm saying? I don't blame him either. It's not his fault. He also had
Yeah.
the worst costume, in my opinion, other than Jason X across the board. And as far as we did the Final Destination movies the other day, all four or five of them, they didn't get 4 stars across the board for me because I don't like them. Uh, I like the second one the best, if that tells you anything. All right, so slash scores. We looked at Bride of Chucky. At this is the group score from the Horror Syndicate followers. Almost 1,000 people rated this one at 85%. It was also National Crack Giveaway Day, so that's probably why. No, Seth, you came in a bit lower on this one, 71%. Um, anything you want to say?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm looking at my ratings, right here,
Hmm.
based on writing, directing, acting, cinematography, editing, and production value, score, kills, effects, entertainment. It's essentially sevens across the board
Yeah.
for me personally, because I do have fun with it. I do think it is, entertainment value. I gave it a seven because I can put it in and I can watch it, and I think it's fun. The effects I gave a nine because for all the movie's faults, the effects are really good. Uh, and then I also gave a nine to cinematography because I think it's a good looking film. But everything else is all sevens for me. I think it's a fun movie. So it's just out of it's a far cry from the first three, but this one I could still kind of enjoy. That's all I gotta say about that.
All right, Forrest. My score is quite lower, 53%. Um, I see where people could have fun with this movie. I did not.
Yeah,
I
that's
just
fair.
I don't think it's a good movie. I think it's one of the better things. I'm trying. I was looking it up while you were talking. I think, if I'm not mistaken, let me look before I say anything. Yeah, this was one of those movies that had a great soundtrack. It was better than the movie, in my opinion.
Yeah,
So
soundtrack was
yeah,
good.
yeah, the soundtrack's great, and that's that time frame in the mid '90s to early 2000s where movies had awesome soundtracks. And this was one of them. And because I had the soundtrack, but overall the movie just doesn't deliver for me at all. It doesn't make me laugh. It makes me cringe more than laugh. I'm with you on the amulet thing. Uh, I'm with you on if there was an increased level of paranoia and a little bit more horror. I think I would have liked it better because it's a straight up comedy in my opinion. Um, but overall, between the two of us, it's a 62%. So yeah, Jennifer Tilly's
Yeah.
boobs. I wonder if they look like they're probably really like they really hang down low. What do you think?
I don't know. We'll have
They
to
don't,
we'll have
they
to
don't look.
dig into her filmography to find out.
Yeah, I know she was in a movie like called The Getaway or something like that, where she's like with Alec Baldwin, I think, where she shows the boobs and Bound.
Yep.
But I don't know if it really goes all in. She's 65 now. That's crazy.
Yeah.
Has she been in the Chucky show?
Oh yeah. She's a big part of it. And she's so over the top in season two that it's like it almost kills it.
Really?
Yeah.
The Getaway. That's the movie. Alec Baldwin, Kim Basinger,
My God,
Basinger.
I have not seen the
You
movie
know the
since
movie
the
I'm talking about, though,
90s.
right?
Yeah. I used
Yeah,
to watch that quite a bit in the 90s.
it wasn't a bad kind of crook movie or whatever.
I enjoyed it. Yeah.
Seth, is that your Noah Wiley in your pick?
No, that's Ellis from Die Hard.
Who's Noah Wiley? That name sounds familiar.
Um,
It's this fella here.
I think Noah Wiley is he was in ER.
Oh yeah, okay.
I
I
can see the resemblance.
yeah. These three middle of yeah. I think I was being kind of nice when I rated this, and the soundtrack it got a high because the score plus soundtrack got a higher score, so that really
Well,
amped it up a little
the
bit.
score's pretty good too. I mean, it's
Yeah,
from the
that's what I'm
same.
saying. The score and the soundtrack are they amp the score up a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah, well, it's the same composer who did Child's Play 2.
Hmm.
Unfortunately, he didn't have any of his themes from Child's Play 2 in it, but
No, he should have
yeah,
because that's the best scored movie of them all.
yeah.
Really? Everybody started cheering and clapping when he was undressed. Gross. That's weird. The Getaway is not good. Hell of a set of assets in Jennifer Tilly though. I like Getaway. I remember watching. I think I watched it because it showed her boobs. Her husband Harold was trying to get in to watch, and she's screwing some guy. She's like Harold. I never forget that because I rewound it a lot. Just saying. I wish I wish hadn't got sick and could have been involved. Yeah, it's okay. You can be involved in the next ones.
Well, what you can do, Stephen, is go through on YouTube. You can watch them and comment
You hit the like
there.
button.
Hit the like button,
Yep.
and you know, help us out, buddy.
Salesman, this guy. It's probably not worth watching nowadays because it's Alec Baldwin when he started kind of losing faith or losing not faith but kind of falling off the A list until he came back in like the mid 2000s with 30 Rock.
Well, like when I saw Getaway, I was a kid,
Yeah, me
so
too.
I was,
It's 14.
I was easily entertained.
Well, it was also we were 14. I was 14, so you would have been 11 or so. And yeah, we
Yeah.
were way. It's not. We didn't have the movies that we have now today. So it looking at the Getaway now versus 1993 or 94 when it came out, it probably is a piece of dog shit. But back in 93, it was high entertainment.
Well, I liked it too because it's Alec Baldwin and Kim Basinger, right?
Mhm.
So her, of course, I saw Batman in '89 in the
Yep.
theater, and of course, and I watched the shit out of that movie all the time on VHS. So it's like, ooh, Vicky Vale, and then of course
Hmm.
Alec Baldwin. I
She weighs a little
personally
more
like,
than 110 pounds. I'm just saying.
yeah. And with Alec Baldwin, a movie I liked also in the '90s was The Shadow.
Hmm.
So it had the actors, so it had that appeal, and then it was an action movie.
I think Michael Madsen's in it too.
That would make
Who,
sense.
yeah, who we saw a lot of back and around that time.
Yeah.
Yeah, it had a bunch of those kind of. Oh, it's on Peacock. James Woods was in it. Yeah, Philip
Oh,
Seymour
really?
Hoffman. Yeah, I might have to watch this, revisit this one.
I'm gonna have
Five
to
point
revisit
eight
it.
on IMDb, 33% on Rotten Tomatoes.
It's like one of those movies that like I used to watch all the time, but I completely forgot about. So thank you to whoever brought that movie up.
I think it was me because of her boobs.
Well, thank you, Ray.
You're welcome. Just don't get caught rewinding that scene. Oh man, it made $30 million at the box office. Yeah, I like James Woods also. I was a fan
Oh
of
yeah,
his back then.
yeah.
Um, 1990, yep, 1994, The Getaway, not the video game. Who's hotter, Meg or Jennifer? Meg, in my opinion.
I say Jennifer.
Really?
Yep.
Meg's from Psycho 3, right?
Psycho 2.
2.
And she was in the '90s version of Invasion of the Body Snatchers, just called Body
Body
Snatchers.
Snatchers.
Yeah.
Well, let me look it up because we'll have to put that to a debate in my brain. Meg, because if I remember, I thought Meg Tilly had this like shyness about her.
I think here's what I'll say. I think Meg is a better actress, though.
Oh, she's way cuter. Come on. She's got this like innocent girl next door type of vibe where Jennifer Tilly looks like a whore. Just saying.
Hey,
That 200 Kim Basinger was hot back then, except for
Oh, and by the way,
when.
Meg Tilly does appear in Chucky season 2
Oh, really?
as herself
Oh, because of Jennifer Tilly.
because Tiffany's in Jennifer Tilly's body,
Yeah.
so she thinks that's her sister.
Ugh. Now that means we have to talk about Seed of Chucky. I was hoping we get away with not covering it, but here we are. Seed of Chucky. Well, here's. I got them both on one. Seed of Chucky. Time to raise some hell. I think this is the worst of all the franchise films. Worst film of all, maybe with one exception.
The entire Children of the Corn franchise.
No, I don't count that as one of the big franchises. Come on. I mean, it's a big franchise because there's like 12 entries or 11 entries or whatever. No, I'd say Hellraiser Revelation might have been worse. Well, that's a movie that had a lot more potential, but this one had no potential, in my opinion. What do you
Yeah, I
think?
can see. Yeah, Revelation is worse. Yeah.
By the way, my stepmother's an A-list. Yep, Allison Hannigan. You had a crush on Seth Green too? So did I. So let's get into this. What about this movie? So this is first of all, this is a batshit crazy movie in my opinion
Hmm.
from the jump, and I like the beginning of the movie because I thought that kind of worked, you know.
Hmm.
Uh, and then it gets into the real world, and it just like I don't know, like when I think of this movie, what like if the John Waters scene, of course, comes to mind, but also the Red Man scene with him sitting at the table that comes to mind too, and then of course the scene with the baster.
Hmm.
Those are the only things that kind of come to mind, and just like I think about it, I'm like, what were they thinking? What were they doing? Like seriously, what was going on at this point in time that made them make these decisions? Can you give me any reason to like this movie, Seth?
No, I cannot. My score for this is pretty low.
Yeah.
Um, so this is a movie where because I did like Bride, I
Mm.
was pretty excited to see this one. Right. So me and my friends, we got together, we did a mall trip, smoked a couple J's on the way, and
Of course.
we watched the movie. And then when we left the theater, we're like, "What the fuck was that?" So I will say this: this is easily the worst movie in the franchise. Probably worse than a lot of other franchise lows.
Yeah.
I will watch Freddy's Dead every day of the week before watching this one time a year.
Why you gotta
Um,
invoke Freddy's Dead? Freddy's Dead's a lot of fun. Come on. Jason Takes Manhattan. Let's not try that.
I would rather watch Jason Takes Manhattan than this one. And Jason Takes
Boom.
Manhattan is probably one of the dumbest written films of all time. But this
Seed of
is
Chucky says, "Hold my beer."
Seed of Chucky is just it's bad on so many levels. And there's a couple positives that I will say for this, okay? But I
Hmm.
just want to get the negatives out of the way first. So first and foremost, this film, it was the directorial debut of Don Mancini, and based on the story and based on the direction, this was just poorly made, in my opinion. There was nothing that felt theatrical about this. This looked and felt like a made-for-TV movie.
Yes, it did.
Um,
Oh yeah.
like yeah, I was like, why am I in the theater seeing this? There's nothing about it that feels theatrical. It just feels
Hmm.
very small. It feels very bland. Feels very like it should be 4:3 ratio. I don't know. Like it was just so there's that, and it just makes a complete joke of the franchise, and I just can't stand that. I think the writing for the most part is pretty bad. Um, And not to mention too is who's the protagonist of this movie? Is it Jennifer Tilly? Because she's not very likable
Mm-mm.
as Jennifer Tilly. She's very obnoxious, and
Yeah.
there's not really enough to make you kind of sympathize or feel bad for her at all. It's all about sort of like Jennifer Tilly making fun of herself. It's like a sort of a self-referential meta movie where she's kind of
Self-deprecating.
she's poking fun of herself. She's poking fun of her career, and with the whole thing where she's going for like the role of a virgin. Kind of funny. I get that. So overall, I mean, this is and then there's the whole thing with Glenn and Glenda, and I get that. Yes, from a thematic point of view, Don Mancini was ahead of his time with introducing progressive themes into this movie.
Mhm.
Um, but it forsaked the horror altogether. Like at least Bride had some elements of horror in it. Seed has practically none. There's some decent kills,
Mhm.
of course, like the John Waters character. I think the decapitation one was kind of fun. But other than that, like it's just this is all about the jokes, the one-liners, the themes, and just like this really weird tone overall. So yeah, it's not a very good movie, and I'll get more into that shit when we go through our scores, which I imagine we'll probably do shortly. Um,
Yeah. I have
so
nothing to say about this movie, so
yeah, well, why don't we get into the scores? Because I think the couple of the positive things I have to say, just a few positive things I can mention
well,
as
before
I
we do
go
that, I
down.
want to go back to what you said about it feeling like a made for TV thing. This
Mhm.
movie reeks of late '90s or early 2000s TV shows, like Buffy the Vampire Slayer. I mean, Buffy the Vampire Slayer was good, but it had that quality to it,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
especially with the scenes with Glenn or Glenda or whatever, it
yeah.
had that quality to it. And it's like this almost feels like an after school special in some scenes.
Hmm.
And it's so bad, man. It's so bad.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's do scores. We'll start with yours as we do. Which first we'll start with the audience score, which is 52%, which is high in my opinion. Um,
Yeah.
like this is way too high. I this should have gotten ones and twos across the board, which would have given it about a 15%, or no, 30%, which is the lowest score you can get with the horror syndicate's 5-star rating is a 20%. So 52% is kind of high. You gave it, and I when I saw this, I had to take a double take. I was like, really? He hates it or doesn't like it this much? 39%.
Well, I was being generous, by the way.
Apparently,
With
yeah.
39.
Well, my score's not too far from this,
So
but
yeah. So initially, I wanted to give just to break down the ratings and how I came up with 39. For the write-in, I gave it a 2. Initially, I wanted to give it a 1, right? Because as I mentioned, like this is like you watch Child's Play 1 through 3, and then you watch this and you're like, what the fuck happened?
mm,
The, Don Mancini, uh, it was a person I do respect, and I'm a huge fan of the whole franchise, and I'm um, caught up with the show even, right? So I do watch these quite often, and I do respect Mancini, but my initial instinct was give Write-In a 1. However, I decided to give it a 2 because I think there are some actual legit funny lines in this. Um, uh, One of my favorites is when Glenn says, "Is mommy ill?" and Chucky replies, "Well, the courts seem to think so." I think that's a really clever line. I think that's really
mm,
funny. Um, I like the whole idea of Tiffany wanting to do better for the sake of the kid, and so they make this little no kill thing, which Chucky crosses his fingers for. And and then of course there's one line in the movie that I actually love, and that is when Chucky screams, "I'm Chucky, the killer doll, and I dig it," because that is such a great line for the character. Because up to this point, it's all about him getting out of that body, possessing the
Hmm.
human, and now he's embracing the fact that he is a killer doll. And from this point forward, they go forward with it, right? Where it's like, now he's mailing him, or he's getting Tiffany to mail him to past victims and other people so he can kill as Chucky. Like, and honestly, since he declared that he loves being the killer doll, he's he's come out as the victor of every movie following this. He wins at the end of Curse. He wins at the end of Cult. You know, so once he stops trying to get out of the body, once he finally embraces who he is, yeah, he starts to win. So I kind of like that. So I gave it a two. Directing, I also gave it two. I understand it's Don Mancini's first directing effort. Again, like I said, though, it felt like a made-for-TV movie. It
Hmm.
felt flat. It felt artificial, I think, and all that. Acting, I gave a three. Um, Mainly because I think Brad Dourif's voice work is still very solid. Um, I'm trying to justify why I gave it a three though, because there was, I don't know if someone else was good in it.
Was anybody good in
No, not really. Okay, anyway,
it?
um, uh, cinematography and editing were, I gave fours just because I was feeling generous.
Mm.
Um, Same with production value. Um, the score, I did not like the score at all. Um, it just
No.
added to the cheapness of it. It
Well,
just
it was
it,
barely a score, in my opinion, if that makes sense, you know?
yeah, but I mean, you could hear it even in the opening credits. It almost like it almost adds to that made for TV feel, and someone correct me if I'm wrong, but this is the same composer who did uh the Howlin', so that's
Really?
kind of shocking. Yeah,
Well, I mean, you're also
and I
talking
could be
about
wrong on
22
that, but
years
I
in
could
between. I'm looking right now
okay.
because that's 20.
The
You're thinking
kills I
you're
gave a
talking
five.
22 years in between.
Yeah, well, and it's two different tones of film too.
Yeah,
Um, Kills I gave a five because
it is. Holy shit.
yeah,
Same. Yep. Same person.
yeah.
Hmm.
The the kills I gave a five. I think John Waters' death was fun. Um, uh,
Yeah.
the one chick who probably should have been a protagonist, but she was kind of wasted, getting set on fire. I thought that was really cool. Um, the effects I gave a seven because I think despite all this movie's flaws, the effects are decent. As far as like the Chucky, Tiffany, even Glenn, the animatronics, the way that they move, some of the gore, it looks decent. And entertainment wise, I gave it a three. Um, One thing I forgot to mention that I wanted to mention too is like I really liked the opening.
Hmm.
Unfortunately, it was ruined by the fact that it was a dream.
Yeah. Hmm.
I like that whole point of view. I like the way it was shot. So like when I was sitting in the theater and the movie started, I was like, okay, this is gonna be cool, and then it just kind of gets ruined from there. And then there's this whole stupid, voiceover narration. There's a whole thing with the whole thing where it's supposed to be a joke where Glenn thinks he's Japanese because it says made in Japan.
Hmm.
Um, uh, but Chucky was an American made doll. Um, so I don't know. It's just it's kind of dumb.
There's a
Yeah,
lot of
and
dumb in this movie, man.
it is for sure. And like this movie made me not care about the franchise to the point where when Curse came out, I was so fucking cynical. I didn't even care if I watched it opening weekend. Eventually I did, and I'm glad I did. But like I was like, oh well, Don Mancini's back to direct again. Oh, it's direct to video this time.
Hmm.
How good is this gonna fucking be? It's a follow up to Seed, blah blah blah. But luckily he righted the ship. We'll just say that. But everything about this movie doesn't work. The tone, the way the film looks and feels, the score, uh, the characters, um, the story even is very thin. It's a very thin story, and
It's a movie that feels like a rights movie. You make a movie because you're about to lose the rights. You
yeah,
know?
yeah.
Yeah. I got a confession to make. So when the anchor says they were filming a movie called Chucky Goes Psycho, I'm like too late.
Yeah.
So this movie, because you mentioned it, this movie did make me give up on the franchise. I didn't own a Child's Play movie until after I saw Curse of Chucky
Oh, really?
because I hated them. Yep, I was like, Seed of Chucky, shit all over the first three movies. Everything that came before it, and I'm not. I refuse. I refuse to buy any of them. I love, and we've talked about it. I love the first three, but I was like, fuck it. It's because you look at it as a whole. You know, and it's like Star Wars. I almost fucked Star Wars because of the Last Jedi. And I've loved Star Wars my entire life. That's how I felt. I was like, fuck that. And then Curse redeemed the Child's Play movies. Luckily, and I wouldn't have watched it if it wasn't on Netflix. Honestly, it was streaming on Netflix when I watched it, and I was like, ugh, I don't know if this is gonna be any good. Didn't know anything about it. Thought it was a reboot, and
Yeah.
watched it. And I'm like, okay, Child's Play's back, and I went out and bought the first three movies. And I didn't
Well,
buy
see,
Bride or Speed until they came in a pack of all seven. Was it seven? Yeah, all seven movies.
yeah,
I refuse to buy these two individually. I'm just gonna put that there.
yeah. I was very hesitant, especially on Seed. I think I got it cheap just to fill my collection. I don't watch it very much, and I will say though, to clarify though, like it made me not care about the future of the franchise. Like it didn't prevent me from going back and watching the original three or even Bride, because those four I was able to rewatch.
It was like Jack and Batman. It didn't have any future after this. I'm just
Hey
saying,
Eckhart,
you ain't
think
got
about
no
the
future.
future.
Yeah,
Ain't got no future, Jack.
it didn't like we went nearly a decade without another Chucky movie
Yeah,
because of this movie.
yeah,
I thought the franchise was dead until all of a sudden, because I was for the most part, I was out of the horror world when Curse of Chucky came out. I wasn't like I had lost faith in horror almost completely because of the last decade and a half almost. And when I saw, I'm not saying the Curse of Chucky brought me back, it's not. But when I saw that, I was like, okay, I think I can finally put the Child's Play movies back in my collection where they belong. I never owned one unless I recorded it off a TV, which was two
yeah.
and three. But then after seeing Curse, I was like, I want this and I want one, two, and three. Fuck Bride, fuck Seed. I'm gonna skip over those bitches. And then yeah, so I'm glad they made, like, we almost lost the franchise. We almost lost two good movies that followed this because of this movie. This is a franchise killing film, and it nearly did that to the Child's Play franchise.
Well, and you're absolutely right about that too, because by all rights, Curse should have been a theatrical film, but because
Yeah.
of this film, because of
Hmm.
Seed, uh, that sealed the fate on that, and it just sucks too because Curse is. We'll talk about it next week, but it's my third favorite in the franchise. You
I
know,
think I agree with that. I go back and forth between that and three, but yeah, I think I kind of agree with that. And if I was going to look up the production real fast because I really feel like Mancini had to do a lot to get that movie made, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, probably.
Yeah, I think he went through like 4 or 5 years of hell trying to get the movie made. And then finally he got it made because after Seeds, like who the fuck would give him money to make another Chucky movie?
Yeah.
You know, so sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, that's fine. I was just going to comment on Sean's comment there about season two.
Go ahead.
I've seen it, but I've been very hesitant to add that to my Blu-ray collection. I know it's out and it's available to buy, but I'm just like, I don't know if I'm gonna fucking buy season two. That's how much I didn't like season two.
Yeah, I don't even know if I want to watch that show at all. I wish
Dude,
they would have not gone that route. I hate that they went to the TV show route instead of
yeah,
going with another movie. They were on such a good trajectory with the movies, and then let's make a show instead and fuck all the fans. That's how I felt about it. So I was
yep.
like, fuck, I don't care. I'm not gonna watch it. They could have made a movie called Chucky and just called it because why haven't they made a movie just called Chucky yet? You know, you got the
Well,
of the movies with Bride of, Seed of, Curse of, Cult of, and then just Chucky for the next movie would have been cool. No,
well, if I remember correctly, one of the things, and I could be wrong about this, but if I remember correctly, I read this that one of the things that Don Mancini was pissed about the remake from MGM was the fact that he was going to call the TV show Child's Play. Um, but like I could go into length about the TV show and rant about it. I will say that uh, I don't remember how many episodes are in season one, maybe 10. I will say the first, if that's the case, the first 9 episodes are actually really solid. There's a lot of really great stuff in the first if it is a 10 episode, I can't remember if it's 10 or 8 or whatever,
I'm looking.
but all but the last episode. The last episode of season one pissed me the fuck off because they ruined the Nika character. There's so much stupid shit in that finale that it was like, what are you doing, Don Mancini? Um, and you know, because like I was skeptical about the TV show, but then I started watching it and I was like, okay, this is actually kind of fun. I actually did reviews of the first 2 episodes
I remember. Yeah.
for the Horse Syndicate website because I actually enjoyed it. And then when it got to the finale, I was like, okay, f this. Um, and now I'm ultra salty about it too because of the way Cult ended and the potential that they could have done as a film with everything that they set up with that and the way that they've treated the Nika character. I mean, it's retarded.
Yeah. So it's 8 episodes.
8. So yeah, so the first 7 episodes are really solid. The 8th episode sucks ass.
How long are the episodes? Right in mind,
Um,
41 to 54 minutes.
yeah.
Yeah, I don't even know if I want to watch the show ever. Um, yeah, I like the remake though. And we'll get to the remake as well. Whoa, where did we leave off? Here we go. Season one was good until the last 2 episodes. Okay, to be fair.
Yeah, we're kind of in
Ray, do you
agreement.
have a quote from New Jack City or Menace Society? What? Did I do that? If I did, it was an accident. They blocked Mancini from calling it Child's Play. Yes. The remake should have been called Buddy. Yeah.
Yeah,
They couldn't do
we'll
what?
definitely get into that when we get into the because I have a lot of thoughts on that one.
Yeah. That's 3 weeks away. I find it funny Lexa Doig is embraced to talk about Jason X, but she is happily promoting Lexi. Lexi? Isn't it Lexi Doig? 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 Whatever.
Lexa,
Lexa, whatever.
yeah, she was also an Arrow. She was Um, she was Talia, wasn't she?
I don't know. I have no clue. The
Well,
remake is
you
my
loved Arrow.
favorite franchise. Huh? I did like Arrow. Doesn't mean I know everybody's name. I,
Well, she played Talia al Ghul.
well, Talia was also in like 3 episodes of like 100 something. So
Okay.
I don't know. I don't know. Play him. I mean, her sister was in the show more than she was.
Yeah.
Nissa, and I liked her. Katrina something or other. Katrina
Yeah.
Law. I like her.
Yeah.
See, I remember the main character types, but not people who are barely in the show.
Well, she was
Um,
in like seasons like 6 and 7, I think. Maybe even
I
season
couldn't tell
five.
you who played Ray Shagul or Ra's al Ghul.
I couldn't tell you that either.
Yeah,
I just I was like, oh, it's the chick from Jason X. That's how I knew.
no. So anyway, we didn't finish. Your score's 30. Mine's 32. Fuck it. Fuck this movie. And
Yeah.
overall 36%. There you go. There's our bastard child right there.
Nice. Good
Yeah,
image.
yeah. And then next week, Curse of Chucky. I'm actually looking forward to this one. This movie got the series back, the franchise back on track until the end of this one. The end of this one's great. The beginning of this one's great. The middle of this is pretty good. It's
Hmm.
just the fact that they decided to go the TV show route and fucking, in my opinion, killed the franchise.
Yep.
So that's my opinion. I have not seen the show, but I'm not one that wants to sit and watch a Chucky show for 8 hours. Because that's the thing. I've talked about it before. One of my biggest problems with this, and it's the same thing with Ash versus Evil Dead in the Evil Dead movies, is that there's you want to binge watch these movies like, oh, I'm going to watch all seven Child's Play movies, cool, but that's not the end of the story. Then you got to get into the show, and you can't just like we used to do marathons of these movies back in the day, like A Nightmare on Elm Street or Friday the 13th or whatever, which is impossible now because Friday the 13th would take 15 hours or more, probably more. Same thing with Halloween, but like you want to do these things, but the story's not over at the end of Cult, so you can't do that anymore. And then you got 8, 16, almost another 25 hours of content to watch, which equates to like 10 movies, 10 or
Yeah.
11 movies.
Yeah.
So it sucks that they did that. I wish they would have stayed in the movie format. I
Same
did
here.
like the remake. So
Mhm.
yeah, Alexa got paid for an episode of Smallville she wasn't even in because they edited her out.
Oh, that's interesting.
Them's the breaks. Trekopedia, did you follow Rage of Razor page? We're getting ready to do some superhero movie talk here directly. We just came up with a rating system. Actually, we finalized it. Was that today or yesterday? It was yesterday, right?
Yesterday. Yep.
Yeah, so we finalized our rating system for that. 10 categories, 1 out of 10. So we're going to be doing not slash scores. You remember what I called them, Seth?
Um, superhero fuckery.
No, but that's
Oh,
close.
okay.
that's, that's pretty close. Superhero, the SRS score is what we're calling. So superhero rating system, SRS score. So yeah, we'll be doing that very soon. Yeah, Alexa. I next time I watch Arrow all the way through, I'm like, oh yeah, Dweeg or however you say her name. She was in Smallville called Scion, where Connor shows up and
Oh,
she's bragging. I remember that episode.
that was season 10, right?
Yeah, I think it was, wasn't it?
Yeah, yeah. That's what. Yeah, that's the season with the Lex clones.
I found a rapper eating trash out of my dumpster. He said for $50 will come in on my show. Cool. Um, you can pay him that $50. I'm not paying him shit. That's gonna be awesome, guys. I'll definitely thank you. Hit the subscribe button if you haven't. Tell your friends about it. We are one away from 75. Woohoo! Uh, the Horror Syndicate is at 1619. Thank you, everybody who subscribes and watches the show. A lot of you don't.
Awesome.
Um, but that's pretty much it for tonight. Unless you got anything else. Remember, next week it is Curse of Chucky, and I think we're gonna have a lot of fun with that one because this was the return to horror for Chucky, really. Um,
It's yeah.
and I believe our scores will be higher.
Much, much higher.
Yeah.
I have a lot of high enthusiasm for Curse, and I don't understand why some fans are still shitting on that movie. But
I don't understand why anybody was shit on it. Like, I haven't read the comments from the 5-star rating system thing, but we'll definitely put up a give me your opinion on Curse of Chucky post before we do the show.
yeah,
Uh, but yeah, I'm looking forward to that because it's a good one. It's
hmm
like I said, it's the return to horror for the Chucky movies. Um, I'm not sure what we're doing on Sunday yet. Thank you, appreciate that. Maybe John dies at the end. I think.
ooh, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, well, we so we did the top 30 masks in horror or whatever, and we're like, oh, we should do that movie. We should do that movie. There's a bunch of movies we didn't do, and you've been wanting to talk about that. I've never seen it, so that might be
You
what
own
we
it,
do.
don't you?
I'm pretty sure I do because they had it for. It's either I own it or I saw it so many times at the dollar store for $1 on Blu-ray and never bought it. Which
I'm
that could
pretty.
be.
I'm pretty sure a couple years ago, like we were talking, and you were looking at your collection, and you pulled it out. I'm pretty
I
sure you
feel
do
like I do own it because why would I pass up a movie that is supposedly good for that's $1? You
that.
know, if I don't have it, I'm going to kick myself in the nuts like 3 times because it's like it was $1. It was legitimately $1. So yeah, well, I'll look after the show's over and see if I got it.
Well, if we're doing that, then I'm definitely gonna listen to the audiobook at work. And
Don't quote me on that yet. I got we got. Let me find make sure I have the movie before we uh, do that for sure. Because well, is it streaming? I don't remember. I think it's might be streaming somewhere. Hold on. I think it's on Hulu. Oh, it's on. Yeah, yeah. Let's just do that. We'll tell Nate because it's streaming on Max. So if I don't have the Blu-ray, I can still watch it.
okay,
So
perfect.
John dies at the end. Spoiler alert. I don't have any clue if that's true. I've never seen the movie, so
Spoiler alert: the book is written by a complete smartass, so the title is very sarcastic.
hmm. Did you write it?
No, but Amber often compares me to the main character in that.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, this should be a treat. Yeah, I definitely want to see if I have the Blu-ray, regardless of being able to watch it on Max. But that's our next show on Sunday. The Sunday after that, we will not be doing a show for Discourse as the Super Bowl will be on, and I know Jared will want to watch that because his shit team, the Chiefs, are in it.
So, do you want
And
to do a show?
yeah, I should. I should do a show rather than watch it. I'll end up watching it. Even though I made this whole post, I'm not watching the Super Bowl this year. I'll still
Yeah,
probably watch it. Reynolds wants to watch. He loves the 49ers. So,
that's
um,
what I'm rooting for.
well, yeah, I mean, why wouldn't you? I think most of the country's rooting for the 49ers. I know there's a lot of right wing conspiracy theories saying that halftime Taylor Swift's going to come out and say Joe Biden or is should be our next president, and all the Swifties are going to vote Joe Biden. Do they also realize that most of the Swifties are not old enough to vote? Idiots. They're fucking these right wing political people are on Fox News and OAN and Newsmax are a bunch of fucking morons. My daughter is a Swiftie. She can't vote. She's 10. You fucking morons. Most people over 18 don't like Taylor Swift. That's the truth. Idiots.
Mhm.
Anyway, that's what we got for the night. I'm not sure if anybody's watching when we're going to get to that superhero stuff, but I started with 1989's Batman. I've already got it rated. No spoilers. I'm not going to tell you what it is. But I watched Batman Begins the other day, and now that's going to get rated. I have to finish it because I had to turn it off because I had to go to bed. But anyway, when I finish Batman Begins, which is my favorite of the Nolan movies, uh,
Absolutely.
yeah, 100%.
Yep.
It's dude. It's I watched Batman Begins. I watched The Dark Knight. I'm like, well, what the fuck happened here? Like what happened? Like you have this dark, gritty, amazing looking Gotham City, and all of a sudden
Mhm.
it's Chicago.
Batman Begins is such a good Batman movie. It's one of my. It's my second favorite Batman movie.
I will use this term underrated. It's underrated. because of The Dark Knight, it's underrated. It is the best of the three movies, in my
Yeah,
opinion.
actually, you know what? I kind of agree with that. At first, I was kind of like, well, the Nolan stuff is pretty fairly rated, but you're absolutely right. Like a lot of people, most people dismiss Batman Begins because of the Dark Knight, and
Yeah,
Batman Begins is so much better.
it's way better. It's way better. I mean, there's some problems with Bale's performance, but like watching it this time around, there's a lot of good. Like the score is on point. I think the
Absolutely.
score is good in The Dark Knight, but I think it has a lot of problems because it feels like parts of the score are just out of place. Which I know I'm not a composer, I'm not a movie director, editor, any of that stuff. But Jesus Christ, there are parts of the score that just don't love this. Why is this here? You know, and that great Batman theme that they have when he's driving the tumbler rooftop to rooftop in Batman Begins is almost completely absent in The Dark Knight, and they use it in the oddest spot. So like
Yeah.
that's what I'm talking about when it comes to the score. But yeah, I love Batman Begins. After that movie came out, I was so hyped for the future of Batman. And then we got The Dark Knight, and I know everybody loves it. I don't. I do
I
not
will
like.
say, I will say that I love the Dark Knight.
I'm not surprised. I mean, and I'm not. That's not a shot at you or anything like that because I
Yeah.
know it's filmed well. I know it's acted well. Heath Ledger's performance is legendary in that movie, and I will fucking die on this hill saying that Heath Ledger's performance in The Dark Knight was 1,000 times better than Joaquin Phoenix in The Joker. I don't care what anybody says because people are saying, "Oh, Joaquin Phoenix." No, no,
No,
no.
Ledger's performance is great. I think the
Mhm.
only thing that I hang up on with the Dark Knight is like the third act, the whole thing with the two fairies, like it, the bomb thing. It just it was dumb. Like I felt like that movie kind of went on a little bit longer than it should have. It should have ended at a certain point.
The Dark Knight.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, one of the problems with The Dark Knight for me is
and they ruined Two Face.
they ruined Two Face. That's my biggest problem. I drove home quiet. My wife was like, "Are you okay?" I'm like, "No, I'm pissed. I am pissed." She's like, "Why?" I was like, "Two Face. Two Face is my favorite Batman villain, and they fucked
Same
him.
here.
They fucked him."
I
And
was
and
I
I
was
hate. Go ahead.
I was gonna say I was super excited, like because of the way that they drew out his origin,
Yep. Mhm.
and I was like,
And
cool,
Eckhart was great.
this yeah, and I was like, this is gonna be a good setup for the character to be the main villain for the next one, but then they kill him at the
They
end,
kill him. Yep.
and I'm
That's
like,
why.
what?
That's the number one reason why I was pissed. No joke.
Yeah,
You
I'm
hit
like,
right on
what
the
the?
head. That
Yeah,
was the number one. I'm not even joking. I like they killed him off, so he gets to be Two Face for like 10 minutes, and then he dies. I mean, I understand it's a grounded universe, and those burns are gonna fucking like get him. But shit, man, it's still comic book movies. Come on. He probably should have died anyway. But like,
yeah,
I also do not like Joker's big heist at the end, or not heist, or whatever you want to call it. It was lame. It was fucking lame. That whole ending with the sonar and all that shit and the boats. That was
yeah.
so.
Well, yeah, that's what I was talking about. Like the whole thing with like the two fairies
Yeah,
of
yeah, yeah, yeah.
of criminals and the
I agree with
citizens,
you. Yeah, it
and
was
like
anticlimactic.
yeah, I felt like the movie should have ended at some point before then because I mean, there's a lot of great intense moments in The Dark Knight,
Yeah.
and I kind of look at it too as sort of like it. And I know this is a little bit from the comics, so a little bit from like the Long Halloween, but like the whole like almost untouchables aspect to it with Batman, Dent, and Gordon
Hmm.
is really cool.
Yeah,
Um,
and that gets broken up really fast too.
yeah,
It's just it's like it's so they talk about BVS being packed full to where it's the multiple movies. I think The Dark Knight's the same way because that fairy thing would have been fine if it was the opening to a movie, not the ending. It wasn't
yeah,
an ending worthy, event. It didn't need to
yeah.
be a sky beam and an army coming out. There should have been something different. I don't know what, but I don't know. I don't care. I'm glad he didn't do four movies. Honestly, no offense. I'm glad Nolan he's a great director and everything, but he can go fuck off from ever doing another superhero movie. He's the
Well,
reason the Man of Steel is the way it was. I like the Man of Steel, but there are problems with that too. And we'll get into
yeah,
all that on Rage of Razor.
yeah. Well, honestly, like Nolan's best stuff is his own
Anything
original
that,
stuff.
well, it's just like Ryan
Memento,
Johnson.
Memento is like my favorite Christopher Nolan movie of all
Yeah, I
time.
mean, well, even so, like Oppenheimer, I haven't seen it yet, but it's supposed to be. It was like
Yeah.
the best movie of last year, but The Prestige was fantastic.
Hmm.
I mean, he's got some great movies, but superhero movies, other than the Batman Begins movie, is are bad in my opinion. And The Dark Knight Rises again was another movie that suffers because it could have been two movies. Um, I don't know.
Well,
I'm not a big Nolan guy. I'm not a big director guy anyway, but
Dark
and
Knight
David
Rises.
Goyer, I don't like David Goyer either. So
Yeah. Dark Knight Rises was like overstuffed with ideas. Like it should have just been No Man's Land or something.
yep, they could have done so much with that movie or
Yeah.
movies, but it's
It's
over.
grown on me. Because like when I
I
first,
like Rises better than I like The Dark Knight.
yeah, well, like when I first saw The Dark Knight Rises, I was like, I don't really care for it. He's Batman for like a whopping 8 minutes.
Hmm.
Um, but like the more I watch it, the more I actually start to appreciate it. And
The scenes where he is Batman are great, though.
oh,
The
absolutely, and the music I think is
Yeah,
fantastic.
exactly. Yeah, that.
And
I'm not
Tom
wild
Hardy
about.
is
Yes,
Tom
yes,
Hardy
he's
as Bane is great for the
good.
first 2/3 of the movie, and then
Hmm.
they make him a bitch henchman.
Yep. I'm not a big fan of Joseph Gordon-Levitt in the movie, but I mean, there are a lot. I think there are some really cool things in this one. You get a taste of Gotham as in a police state in a way, and I really do like that. And
The football scene was
yeah, really
fantastic.
cool, especially since it was the Steelers. um,
What a lovely, lovely voice.
yeah, I mean, there's a lot about that one. I think that one's underrated. And here's the thing about the Batman Begins and The Dark Knight Rises. It kind of makes The Dark Knight a filler movie because the first movie is about the League of Shadows, and so is this the third one. So the
Yeah,
Dark Knight almost doesn't matter.
yeah.
Just saying. Anyway, um, there's a lot. Yeah, I've got a lot to say about those movies and a lot of these movies. I can't wait to dig into them. Uh, I do have to say his girlfriend in The Dark Knight Rises. I knew she was gonna. Yeah, Talia. It was Talia. It's Marion Cotillard. She's gorgeous, and why wouldn't she be? Uh, yeah,
Uh, Her performance in the end was horrible, though.
it was. Well,
When
there's a
she's
few
dying.
things. I have a lot to say about that one, but I like it better than The Dark Knight. And I'm going to rewatch them all and rate them all, and hopefully you do the same. And we're going to use these same ratings for the most part for the animated movies as well. There's going to be a little bit of a switch because like effects and stuff like that will switch to animation. So
Oh,
this
perfect.
time
Yeah,
animation. Yeah,
perfect.
it's
Yeah.
going to be good. But we're not going to talk about any more of that because I'll be on here forever and I got to get my kids to bed. So
I
yeah,
know.
that's how it goes.
I thought we were wrapping up an hour ago, Ray.
Yeah, I was like, I need to be off here by 9:30. Here it is 10 for me. Have you ever seen where Donald Trump quotes Bane from The Dark Knight? Does he?
I can just picture it.
I'm picturing the scene where he's talking to Daggett, and he's like, "Do you feel in power now?" I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know anything about Donald Trump. All I know is that he did everything right and they indicted him. So I did everything right and they indicted me. Okay. Anyway, come back for the bonus show.
I get your reference.
Oh, the bonus show. The
Yeah.
show where you like to make money. We don't make any money. I watch a political guy called David Pakman on YouTube. He has some funny little clips every now and again that I did everything right. They indicted me. Oh, the bonus show, all this different stuff. Obama. Anyway, that's all we got for the night. I don't want to offend anybody's political whatevers. But we'll be back on Sunday with John dies at the end. We'll tell Nate. You tell Nate.
I'll tell Nate.
And I'm sure he'll be fine with that. I think he likes that movie.
Yeah,
Um,
I think you said he's seen it before.
yeah, and then I'll look for it in my collection. And next week, of course, Curse of Chucky. So that'll be a good time. A good time will be had by all. Have a good night, Seth. Have a good night. I'm gonna get my kids to bed. See ya.